last but not least, we're going to go over the other indicators of the arbitrage bands. So let's take a glimpse at the other indicators that come along with arbitrage. I personally do not use all the other indicators, but I do have my own combinations that I like. So first, we have the level pro. Second, we have the arbitrage Z. Third, we have the atlas. And finally, we have the arbitrage support and resistance, or arbitrage SNR. The level pro. The level pro indicator is very simple and very easy to use. This is where the ground zero is at. Whenever the line is above the ground zero, that is bullish confirmations. And whenever the line is below the ground zero, that is bearish confirmations. And here I usually leave my arbitrage pro settings to arbitrage. Now, I usually use the arbitrage on my level pro, but there are some people who like to have either the novice or the RSI, or they would like to have multiple lines on the level pro. The arbitrage Z. The arbitrage Z is kind of like the level pro, but it's a little different. We still do have the same ground zero, or that's the middle, that's like the middle ground. But if price comes up in this area, then that means that price is overbought and it would try its hardest to come back any lower once it gets to this overbought area. And above ground zero is equal to bullish confirmations, just like the level pro. And same thing could be said about down here. If the line comes down all the way to this last bar, then that means that price is oversold and is going to try to come back up and go bullish. And below ground zero is bearish confirmations. And for the arbitrage Z, I usually leave it for the Z, but again, you can have multiple lines popping up. If maybe you'd want to add the Z and apocalypse together, or the Z and novice. That is up to you, but I suggest that you backtest it before you use it live. The atlas has 4 different parts to it. Let's go over the individual parts of the atlas indicator. For the atlas, I recommend whatever band that you are using on the regular arbitrage bands, you put the atlas 1 band lower. So for instance, if you are using the arbitrage band, then I would suggest that you put the atlas on the RSI band. So here we have the aggressive entry and exit alerts. These alerts give aggressive entries that are before the regular alerts that the arbitrage bands show. Now, I don't know what the criteria is for these to activate, but they are pretty useful if you like to try to catch tops, but I don't personally recommend this indicator. So here's where you can edit how the shapes look like, because as you can tell, the buy and the sell signals look very similar as with the regular arbitrage bands. So what you can do is you can come over here to change the shapes to whatever shapes that are available that you like, and you could also change the colors of the signals that pop up. So as you can see here, I have the plus for a bullish move and the X for a bearish move. Now they're still the same colors, but I just like the different shapes of them so that can tell me the difference between the atlas and the regular arbitrage bands indicator. And as you guys can see, the plus and X's are right behind it. And on the atlas, this is the band exits. That's how you will toggle on and off, whether you want that on or not. Second part of the atlas is lower highs, lower lows, higher lows, and higher highs. Now, I don't necessarily know how these are populated or how they're printed, but there is a way that the lower lows and the higher highs, when they show up, that is trying to tell you that price is going to start turning around for a downtrend. Now, again, I don't necessarily know how to use this as well, but this is something that you would like to ask the creator, Royce, on how he uses it. And for the Atlas, these are what you will toggle if you would want to use the higher highs or the higher lows, or the lower highs or the lower lows. Next, we have the absolute highs and the absolute lows. What this indicator is supposed to do is it's supposed to tell you when price has reached its absolute highest and absolute lowest. First, we identify if the absolute high or the absolute low was the last alert to show up. Once we identify that, we will need to wait for price to drop down before it signals it is at a absolute high. Depending on your band setting on the Atlas, it can either happen very quickly or it could take a long time. If you have this at the RSI line, it's going to come at a very moderate time. If you have it on the arbitrage band, it's going to take longer for that to activate rather than if it was on the RSI line. I know it sounds a little confusing, but the more you use it, the more it's understandable. So the absolute high pops up once this candle pops up. So we can see that it took a very long time until that absolute high even popped up and printed. And when looking for the absolute low, we identified that the absolute high was the last alert that was shown. And once this candle pops up, the absolute low will pop up. The absolute high and absolute low pop up depending on what band you have set up. I'm not entirely sure how many candles is needed to print before an absolute high or absolute low is signaled. And on the Atlas 13, tops and bottoms will be what you toggle to turn on or off the absolute high and the absolute low. The arbitrage support and resistance. So this is a very much newer indicator in the arbitrage bands. This is an indicator that shows you moving support and moving resistance. So what I suggest for you if you would want to start using this is to first identify what time frames that you would like to use, and then you would want to put so that all the indicators, their values, and which ones are which are showing like how they are right here. Then I would recommend to change the colors so that each time frame is color coded so that you won't get confused. And this is on the arbitrage support and resistance. These are some of the time frames that you can toggle to use. Now, I like using the line because if you show the 15-minute band, then it's just going to show you what the arbitrage bands or whatever bands that are associated with these times are being used. So I would suggest just using the line rather than the band. Now, here is the list to all of the indicators that I personally use. I use the arbitrage bands and I use the arbitrage band setting. Time frames that I like using the most are the 1 hour, 4 hour, daily, and the weekly. Second indicator I like using is the Level Pro, and I like using the arbitrage settings. Third indicator that I like using is the arbitrage Z, and I like using the Z settings. These are the indicators that I have backtested and chose that suit my trading style the most. As I mentioned in the beginning, just like every other trading system, you must backtest these indicators before start trying to trade with Arby. And that is the arbitrage bands indicator.